I heard you want a wife. My mother is perfect for you, said the alien girl I gave food to.
Rain drills straight down, hard and steady, turning Dravara 8's side streets into narrow channels that reflect broken neon. Darian Meyer moves through it like he knows the city's bones. Hood low, pack high, boots picking the firm strips between drain grates. He logs a breath, then another. The air today tastes metallic, not sour, which means the filters on the ridge are still working. He files it away. He keeps walking. He is here because he asked to be. 34. Former Frontier Defense scout who left after a line of orders crossed into civilian harm. He never fired that day. He filed a refusal and walked. Now, he's an environmental surveyor, contracted to map contamination and keep the old flood district habitable enough that the people still here don't choke. His mission is simple on paper. Check inlets, test water, patch what he can, report what he can't. His personal rule runs under all of it. Fix the part in front of you. A metal bin scrapes. He stops on instinct. The shape in the rain doesn't turn at first. Small, kneeling, fingers pushing aside rotten cartons with surging care. Wet slip, thin as gauze, glued to a narrow frame. Pale violet skin under streetlight glare. Silver hair snarled and stuck to her cheeks. Darian crouches to drop his height. He keeps his hands visible. You hungry? She freezes, then looks up. Her eyes are too large for her face, the way eyes get when weight drops too fast. She doesn't answer the question. She asks a different one. If I say yes, do you take something first? No, he keeps it flat. No warmth. No edge. Just a statement he can defend. People charge for kindness. She says it like a document she read aloud before. I'm not people. I'm Darian. He points with his chin toward a blue door 2 buildings over. Hot food. 5 minutes. You can sit near the exit. She tracks his hands. Short nails. Old scars along the knuckles. No ring. She nods once, stands, and stays 2 steps back where she can run. They cross a courtyard that smells like wet plaster and battery acid. The stair rails shake under their weight. On the landing, he unlocks the faded blue door. The room beyond is small and ordered. A table with 2 chairs. A narrow bunk. A roll-out cot he keeps by the door. A strip heater under a patched window. A line for drying clothes. A steel sink with a kettle already full. He sheds his jacket, sets his pack down, and goes straight to the stove. Flame on. Pot down. He pours broth and rice, adds salt, and lets steam fill the room with a mild, honest smell. He doesn't look at her for more than a second at a time. She never looks away from him. On the shelf, he takes a small blue bowl with a chipped rim. He hesitates, thumb on the chip, then sets it in front of the chair closest to the door. Wash your hands. Soap is new. She turns the tap. Water runs cold, then warm. She washes with quick, efficient motions. No splash, no waste. When she sits, he sets the bowl and steps back, palms loose at his sides. She eats fast, but neat, like she doesn't trust the meal to stay. When the bowl is empty, she licks the spoon clean, sets it at a careful angle, and takes one long breath, steadying her voice. I heard you want a wife. My mother is perfect for you. Darian holds her gaze. He notes the tremor in her jaw, the calculated boldness. The sentence is bait, test, and request at once. Where is your mother? Close. Her eyes flick to the window, then to the washroom door where 2 toothbrushes hang, one wrapped, one used. She is cold. She thinks humans only take. What do you think? She points at the wrapped brush. You plan for someone else. You kept the small bowl. You fix things that aren't yours. She swallows. If I bring you to her and you shout, I will bite you. Fair. He reaches for a spare jacket on a hook. Show me. They step back into rain. She leads. He watches corners, doorways, the rhythm of footfalls behind them. He doesn't react. They stand locked in that small test. She watches his face for heat or hunger. He gives her patience and the quiet weight of a man who knows what his hands can do and chooses restraint. She pulls back. One night, she says. No talk. No touching. Understood. He offers the spare jacket. She hesitates, then slides in. It's snug across her shoulders. The fabric smells like soap and sun from a different day. It sits on her like a decision. They move. Darien takes the center and pace. Neryl keeps her chin high, even when her knees weaken at the stairs. Zai watches their back trail like a child soldier who never picked up a weapon but learned every movement. At the blue door, Neryl stops. Her eyes catch a small chalk mark near the frame, a circle with 3 lines through it. She touches it with a knuckle. You gave shelter before. Yes. Did they leave, or did you make them leave? They left when they wanted things I wouldn't give. He meets her stare. I don't keep anyone. Good. She steps inside first. The apartment's heat hits all 3 of them at once. The strip heater hums. Steam fogs the patch pane. Darien locks the door and drops the bar into place. The sound is clean and final. He moves without asking permission, because asking for every step would turn safety into negotiation. Rules for tonight, he says, calm and clear. Door stays locked. If someone knocks, I answer. You two don't. Bathroom is yours first. No open flame near the curtain. I sleep on the cot by the door. Neryl nods. She scans every corner, looking for traps. She notes the line for clothes, the folded towels, the spare shirt on the bunk. She notes her options and keeps her back to a wall. Zai edges toward the washroom, then stops. If I use too much water, will you hit me? No, Darien points at the pipes. The tank's full. Take what you need. She bites down on a smile that wants to open, then shuts herself in. Water runs. It knocks in the old pipe, then steadies. Neryl moves to the heater, palms close to the warm strip. The jacket hangs open. The torn silk shows the strong line of her thigh. He sees it and lets himself see it. He also turns to the stove and sets another pot. You do not pretend I am plain, Neryl says. I don't lie to myself. Most men tell me I'm beautiful, then take what that allows. I'm not most men. That sounds like a claim. It's a boundary. The washroom door opens. Zai steps out in a towel too large for her, cheeks pink from heat. The water sang, she says, then checks herself. Notices she sounded childish and corrects. It was warm. Thank you. Clothes on the hook, Darien says. They're clean. They'll be big. Zai nods and vanishes behind the hanging robe. Neryl watches Darien pull bread, fish, and tea from a lower shelf. She clocks what he gives up for them. She registers the second toothbrush, the folded spare shirt, the small stack of bowls. Her mind builds a profile. Organized, restrained, not performative. Her fear doesn't drop. It shifts shape. My background, she says, voice level. You asked for the truth. I was a textile apprentice in the West Quarter. I learned to braid thread so fine it lay like water on the skin. When the mills burned, I slept in a frame shop. The owner left. I stayed until the roof fell. We move when we have to. I have not traded my body for anything. I will not. Noted. He plates food and slides a bowl toward her. He sets the larger portion in front of Zai's chair. He takes the smallest for himself and doesn't mention it. My mission, she adds, crisp. Keep my daughter fed. Keep her off lists. Teach her to refuse quietly until a door is safe enough to say yes inside. Darien nods once. My mission, test water, keep this building from flooding, keep the old people upstairs warm enough to last a month. And if I see someone drowning on dry land, I pull them out. Zai reappears in an oversized gray shirt that hits her calves. She sits. She studies the table like a courtroom and makes a ruling. Families eat first and talk later, she says, repeating a line that likely belonged to someone else long ago. They eat. The room sounds human. Spoons knock bowls. Water runs in bursts. Rain keeps up its stamp on the city. Neryl's shoulders lose an inch of height with each mouthful. Zai stops checking the door every 30 seconds and stretches her legs under the chair. When the bowls are empty, Darien stands and clears the table. Neryl's eyes follow his hands as he rinses. She doesn't thank him. Thanking too soon would feel like debt. Instead, she walks to the window and places her palm on the resin seam he used to seal the broken pane. You did this clean, she says. I try. You live alone because you choose to, or because you drove everyone away. Because I work better with space. He wipes his hands on cloth. People take energy, but so does loneliness. I'm calibrating. She turns from the glass. I want her cot by the door. It already is. If someone knocks, wake first. I will. Zai stands and stares at the bunk. It's made with plain sheets, blanket folded to the side. She hesitates, then lifts the corner and slides in. Her voice drifts from the pillow, softer now. If Rain knocks, do we answer? No, Darian says. Rain doesn't get a vote. Good. She closes her eyes like she believes him. Neryl remains standing. One night, she says again, not as a warning now, more like a boundary she is claiming for herself. No talk, no touching. I heard you. He moves to the cot, lays down with his back to the door, one hand under the pillow, the other open on the floorboards to feel any shift in the hall. He slows his breathing. He listens. 10 quiet seconds pass. The strip heater hums. Pipes settle. Zai's breath evens. Neryl's doesn't. It stalls and catches. He considers speaking, decides silence is less pressure, and waits. Her voice comes in the dark. If I leave at first light, will you follow? No. Why not? Because following turns help into control. If you come back, it's your choice. If not, you still chose. She is quiet long enough that he hears his own heartbeat. Then I might sleep, she says. Sleep, he answers. 3 sharp taps land on the door. Not Rain. Knuckles. Darian is on his feet before Zai shifts. Neryl rises fast, bare feet silent on the floor. She lifts a hand. Wait. And watches his face for any signal that he is about to ruin everything by speaking the wrong word. He slides the bar back just enough to open a thumb's width. Meyer. A voice whispers from the hall. It's Thomas. The roof leak found your meter. Water's climbing. Got a bucket. Darian hands a bucket through the gap. I'll check at dawn. Thomas peers past his shoulder, clocking the extra bowls, the heat, the silhouettes. He doesn't ask. He passes the bucket back. You keep roofs standing, he says, and squints at Neryl's shadow like he's deciding whether to add more. He doesn't. Good night. He shuffles away. Darian drops the bar. The click is clean. He turns. Neryl's eyes are on him. Not soft, but not hostile. You didn't call me wife. I don't label someone before they choose the word. She absorbs that, then crosses to the bunk and lies down behind her daughter, one arm draped over the small body. Zai's hand finds her mother's wrist on instinct. Grip firm, trust conditional, but present. Darian returns to the cot. He feels the building through his palm. The rain lightens. The heater keeps its small, steady sound. He checks his own mind for anything loud or reckless and finds only resolve. He set the rules. He'll keep them. He will reassess in daylight. The room settles. No speeches. No bargains. Just a roof that holds because a man keeps it that way, a woman who decided the door was safe enough for one night, and a child who ate, watched, and then let her eyes close. Their missions align for now. Keep the heat, keep the door locked, keep the fear small enough that sleep can find them. Dawn comes as a dull band behind low clouds. The storm stalls but does not clear. The apartment holds its heat. The strip heater hums. Darian wakes on the cot with his palm flat on the floorboards and feels the slow, even tremor of the building. He checks the door bar, the window latch, the quiet in his chest. He hears Zai's light snore and Neryl's steady breath, then eases up and sets water to boil. He runs a fast loop to the roof with Thomas before either of them stirs. The old man points at a cracked panel. Darian sets a bucket, patches the seam with resin from his kit, and reroutes the trickle into the drain. He logs the repair on his pad with a timestamp. They descend in silence. Work done. Meter saved. No speech needed. Inside, he cooks. Oats, dried fruit, tea. He plates the largest portion for Zai and the second for Neryl, and leaves the smallest for himself. He doesn't announce the order. He sets bowls and steps back. Zai sits up in the bunk, hair wild, eyes clear. She takes in the room like a guard taking first watch. Are we still allowed to be here? She asks. Or did the morning change the rules? Rules hold until I change them out loud, Darian says. You're here. Neryl lifts her head from the pillow. The black shirt from last night hangs loose on her frame. The torn silk lies folded on the line, cleaner than before. Her face looks different in daylight. Less guarded, not soft, just awake to new options. She watches Darian move. He's quick but not rushed. Everything in a place. Nothing for show. Zai climbs down and perches at the table. She tastes the oats, approves, and eats. Keep air and water tolerable. Keep this block standing through another season. If I can make fear smaller inside this door, while I do it, I will. Zai slows her eating to listen. Scared? Yes, he says. I get scared of losing the line between help and control. If I cross it, I don't pretend I didn't. Neryl holds his answer for a beat, weighing it against every hand that has reached for her without asking. Good, she says. Fear that names itself is less dangerous. After breakfast, Darian lays a clean towel and a comb on the table. I have to sweep the east drains, he says. 2 hours. If you stay here, lock the door. If you leave, take the jacket. Neryl stands, draws the jacket on, then takes it off again. Decision lands. We won't leave, she says. But I won't be idle. She opens the low chest he cleared for Zai and pulls a length of salvage cloth from inside. May I cut this? She asks without asking, a test for control. It's yours, he says. Do what you want. He gives Zai a pouch with 10 beans. Count by twos, he says. Stop at the end of the line. The last bean is mine if you skip a number. Zai grins, serious and playful at once. I do not lose beans. Darian leaves. The hallway smells like damp paper. On the landing, he pauses and scratches a small mark under the chalk circle on the frame. A straight line under the old symbol. When he returns, it will say the room is occupied by choice, not by crisis. He set the code with Thomas for nights when doors need to be read from the outside. Rain thickens. He clears 2 drains, bleeds a third with a bent tent peg, and replaces a cracked grate with a spare he has carried for months. He checks an inlet sample and records the turbidity level with a simple note. Acceptable today. He buys 3 fresh rolls and a jar of pickled roots from a woman who stores them in a dry cupboard above a bodega. They trade without talk. She knows his count and trusts his ledger. She hides the reaction under a practical question. What does the chalk mark mean? Darian points at the frame. Circle means this door will open to rain knocks when the weather turns dangerous. 3 lines means supplies inside. I added a line below this morning. It says the room is occupied by choice. Thomas knows the code. He sends people who won't break what they enter. Neryl considers the mark, then the door. You build a quiet network. I build a way to keep the right knocks from breaking the wrong doors. She nods. Approval sits behind guarded eyes, rare and quick. Good. Afternoon settles into clean work. Zai folds dry towels with serious focus. Darian checks the heater filter, cleans the lint screen, and oils the lock. Neryl braids her hair tight and shows Zai how to braid the edge of a blanket so frayed threads sit inside a neat border. Their voices stay low. The room holds a steady sound. Darian catches himself watching Neryl's fingers and thinks about the second part of his mission that he did not say out loud. He wants a partner who sees work and moves. He wants a woman who knows the difference between being desired and being used and will hold him to it. He feels the impulse to speak too soon and kills it. Patience is not a tactic. It is a value. He keeps it. Near evening, Neryl wipes her hands and stands. One errand, she says. I have a kit hidden in the atrium. Needles. A small blade. Thread. I can work faster with my own tools. We go together, Darian says. She bristles. I can walk a stair. I know, he says. We go together anyway. She reads his face for a hint of ownership and finds only logistics. She nods. Zai stays with you in the hall while I reach under the slab. If someone climbs the stair, you put your body on the step. Done. They move at last light. The atrium feels colder without the rush of rain to hide small sounds. Neryl kneels by a cracked tile near the fallen column and slides her arm into the gap up to the shoulder. She winces when concrete roughs her skin, then breathes and keeps going. Her fingers find the parcel. She pulls a cloth roll free and hugs it to her ribs like a rescued limb. A shout carries from the far end of the arcade. Not at them. 2 men argue about a debt near a shuttered kiosk. Darian plants a boot on the stair below them and angles his shoulders to take up space. He doesn't stare at the men. He watches their angles. They don't notice him. They keep yelling at each other and move off. Neryl tucks the roll under her jacket. You did not reach for me, she says on the way back. You didn't need me to. That is the answer I wanted. Inside again, she unrolls the kit on the table. Needles nested in cloth. 2 spools of strong thread. A bone-handled blade, small and sharp. She touches each tool with care. Relief slides through her voice. I can earn my keep with this. You don't owe me rent, Darian says. I owe myself work, she says. Work is how I stay inside my skin. Zai sets her folded towels into the chest and climbs onto the bunk. Mama, if we stay another night, can I sleep without my shoes on? She asks, half joking and half hopeful. Yes, Neryl says. Shoes off. Zai exhales in a way that sounds like a weight leaving a small body. Then I think I will dream. Darian lights the small lamp for the last time before curfew. He keeps the flame low and away from the curtain. He pours tea for all 3. He sets the repaired dress beside Neryl's chair. You made it yours, he says, a plain compliment. She runs a thumb along the new seam. Choice reads different on fabric, she says. She looks at the brass ring on the table that he hasn't mentioned since he made it this morning during his rounds. He left it there without theater. Neryl is already awake, eyes open, still and alert on the bunk behind Zai's sleeping bag. She doesn't speak until he looks at her. We said 2 nights. I keep my word. I heard, he says. He pours oats, adds sliced roots, tea on the side. He plates the largest portion for Zai, the second for Neryl, the smallest for himself. He doesn't announce the order. He doesn't need to. Zai sits up, hair wild, feet still tucked in last night's oversized shirt. Did any rules change while I slept? None, Darian says. Except one. Shoes off in bed is now a law. Zai kicks her heel and grins, relieved that a small luxury can become a rule. I will obey the law. They eat. The room sounds like work and breath and hot food. Neryl watches him move. Quick, but not rushed. Every action clean, nothing wasted. In daylight, his scars read as old choices rather than new threats. She tests the air for pressure. None. She lets a little of her guard slide down, not visible to a stranger, visible to him. I'm going out after breakfast, he says. 2 blocks. Filter check and a meter read. I'll be 20 minutes if nothing breaks. If something breaks, I'll be 45. Do we owe you a report while you're gone? Neryl asks, tone dry, probing whether he needs control to feel useful. You owe me nothing, he says. But if you make changes that affect safety, tell me so I can keep up. That is reasonable. She glances at the line above the heater where last night's repaired silk hangs. I'll finish the seams. Then I'll cook. I know how to make clean food from ugly groceries. What do you need? A knife that holds an edge, she says. Oil that doesn't smoke. A pot that doesn't leak when stir like you mean it. He pulls a wrapped knife from his pack and sets it on the table with a small bottle of clear oil. The pot holds. Stir as if it insulted you. She assesses the knife's balance in her palm. The faintest thread of approval touches her mouth. This will work. He steps to the door, then stops, addressing what people would ask if they had been in the room with him last night and this morning. You told me you walked away from Foreman instead of taking his food, he says, keeping his tone even. You don't owe me details, but if I'm your roof for 2 nights, I should know what lines you've already drawn. She answers without flinching. He wanted my time when I was already spending it keeping my child alive, she says. He wanted a thankful face and a quiet mouth. He wanted a body that never said no on nights when fear warned me to say no. I left because hunger is easier to live within a lost voice. She tips her chin at Zai, who listens with wide, careful eyes. I don't say yes to anything if I cannot choose it again the next day. Good, Darian says. I won't ask for a yes. I can't stand hearing reversed. Zai raises her hand like a student. If Mama says yes and then says no, do you get angry in your chest? I get disappointed, he says. I don't get cruel. Zai's shoulders loosen. Okay. He leaves, checks the chalk mark on the frame, adds a short diagonal stroke so Thomas knows the room is settled, then goes down the stair. Neryl watches the door close, listens to his boots fade. She exhales once through her nose, then gets to work. She sharpens the knife, tests it on a thread, then on a root. Clean cut. She oils the pan, waits until the surface shimmers, and cooks with small, decisive motions. Zai lines beans on the edge of the table and counts them in twos, then tens, then fives backward just to show she can. Narrow corrects her only when she tries to cheat the last two into one. A soft scrape comes from the hall. A folded paper slides under the door. Zai's hand darts toward it. Narrow catches her wrist. Reflex. Then resets her grip gentler, teaching a new rule without fear. We don't grab first, she says. We look. She picks up the paper with 2 fingers and opens it. A single sentence in neat block letters. Keep the violet one safe. A short length of fine thread is taped to the corner. No signature. Ooh, Zai whispers. Narrow tracks the handwriting. The woman above the bodega. Most likely, she says. She used to buy good silk remnants from my master scrap bin. She has eyes that see people, not noise. Narrow tucks the thread into her kit. The note goes into the stove and burns to a clean square of ash. We accept kindness that doesn't ask for visits. Darian returns in 21 minutes with a small bundle of greens and a bag of coarse grains. He sees ash in the stove and checks Narrow's face. She tips her chin once, handled. He lets it pass. What did you fix? She asks. Drain B. It was sulking. It behaves now. He sets the greens on the table. And I traded for these with a spare gasket. No one loses. He notices the seams on the dress. Finished tight, clean. He notices the knife edge. Trued. He notices the pan. Wiped and oiled. He notices Zai's beans. Perfect arc, no gaps. The room has become theirs without permission slips or speeches. Next, he says, addressing the questions he knows have been waiting in both their heads since last night. Documents. Names on lists. I keep my neighbors off lists unless they ask on purpose. If you want official, I can put you on Thomas's maintenance roster as temporary assistants. It pays in food and heat credits and doesn't travel beyond this block. If you want quiet, we keep it quiet. Narrow doesn't answer right away. She touches the repaired silk at the shoulder, thumb rubbing the seam she made. Quiet first, she says. Official later if quiet starts to hurt instead of help. Done, he says. If anyone asks, you're helping me audit water usage. That's true enough. He opens a drawer near the sink to grab spare tags and stops when he sees her eyes on the drawer. She's not prying. She's checking whether she's allowed to see what he keeps closed. He steps aside and lets the drawer sit open. Inside, a coil of wire, 2 spare filters, a folded paper packet sealed with tape, a thin, dented bracelet of hammered brass. Zai points at the bracelet. Whose? Mine, he says. From long ago. Narrow's gaze flicks between the packet and the bracelet. She stays silent. Darian picks up the bracelet, turns it in his hands, sets it down. It was my mother's, he says. She wore it when she worked near furnaces. The dent is from a fall. She laughed and kept wearing it. She's gone now. The packet is receipts for work, not letters. Narrow reads the short disclosure as what it is. A controlled piece of truth offered to settle a curiosity before it grows into a story. She nods. Thank you. The power flickers once, hard enough to dim the heater. Narrow's back straightens. Her eyes go to the door, then the window, measuring what to do if the heat dies and the room becomes a trap. Darian is already at the panel. He resets the breaker with a thumb and waits for the heater to hum. It comes back slow. He watches the indicator light until it holds steady, then looks at her. We're fine, he says. I know, she says, but the second answer lags behind the first. He sees the lag and doesn't wave it away. Zai edges closer to the heater and pretends she didn't. If the light goes away for a long time, she says, do we sing or do we sit quiet? We sit quiet until we need to sing, Darian says. Singing comes after thinking. Zai accepts the order of operations like a new game rule. Okay, I will sing after thinking. They spend the afternoon on useful habits. Darian pulls apart the door latch and cleans the grit out, then reassembles it with oil so the bar drops more smoothly. Narrow takes it in, watches her own reaction rather than his. Heat rises in her face. She doesn't hide it. Thank you for not making your restraint an act, she says. Thank you for saying the part men usually hide. He nods, nothing more. The room doesn't shift into drama. It holds. Night pushes at the windows. Darian lights the small lamp. The flame is low and clean, far from the curtain, exactly where it should be. He sets a shallow basin on the table, pours warm water, and nods at Neryl's hands. "You scraped your arm under the tile," he says. "Let me clean it." She hesitates, as if the basin might be a trick. It is not. She sits. He takes her forearm in both hands, thumb steady, no squeeze. He wipes grit from the inside of her elbow with careful, firm strokes. She watches his face when the cloth passes a tender patch. He sees her watching, slows a fraction, and finishes without commentary. He dries her hand and sets it back on the table, palm up, so she can choose to close the space or not. She leaves it open. Zai's voice comes small from the bunk, half dreaming, half checking that the world still has borders. "If you go out at night, leave a paper on the table that says when you come back," she says. "Then I won't stay awake counting the heater hums." "I won't go out," Darian says. "If I do, there will be a paper." "Okay," she says. A beat later, sing after thinking. Neryl smiles at that, quick and rare. She gathers her tools, her kit, her dress, and her daughter's towel braid. She stands and places a light touch on Darian's shoulder. Not a tease, not an invitation, just an acknowledgement of what the room has become in 48 hours. "Good night. Good night." He lowers the bar. The click is firm. He lies on the cot with one hand under the pillow and the other on the floorboards, feeling the building's small, familiar tremor. He reviews the day the way he reviews a map. Roof stable, drains flowing, heater steady, boundaries clear, plans set. He lets himself think about Neryl's hand on his shoulder longer than he needs to, then files it where it belongs, under future decisions, not tonight. The rain evens out to a soft, regular hiss. The three of them sleep. The city keeps breathing. Inside the blue door, fear is still present, but it is smaller, and it has to share space with something else: routine, choice, and a roof that now remembers more than one name. Rain thins to a cold mist by dawn. The building creaks as it warms. Darian wakes on the cot with his hand flat on the floorboards and listens for trouble. Nothing urgent. He checks the door bar, the window latch, and the quiet in his chest. He stands and puts water on the stove. Neryl is awake, eyes open, steady on the bunk behind Zai. She waits for his look before speaking. "We said 2 nights. This is the second." "I know." He pours oats and lays out 3 mugs. "After breakfast, I'll walk you to the shop. Back room only. That was your condition." "Yes." She sits up, hair in a loose night braid. "I want my hands to pay for what we eat." Zai rolls over, kicks the blanket down, and blinks at the room like she's checking if it stayed the same while she slept. "Are we still allowed to be here?" "You are," Darian says. "New rule. No shoes on the bed stays in effect." She grins and pushes her heels into the sheet on purpose, testing the safety of the rule by breaking it a little. Neryl gives her a look that says enough. Zai pulls her feet back and sits straighter. They eat hot oats with sliced roots and drink strong tea. Darian sets the largest portion in front of Zai, the second in front of Neryl, and keeps the smallest. He does it without comment. Neryl watches, notes the pattern, and files it as a fact rather than a favor. "I found a bodega woman's note yesterday," Neryl says, keeping her tone level. She has kind eyes and a sharp hand. "I will work for her if the back room is clean and the payment is in food, not promises." "I know her," Darian says. She keeps her ledgers tight. She doesn't write down what hurts people. "I'll make the introduction and then step out." Zai chews and studies them both. "If Mama works, where do I stay?" "With me," Darian says. "We'll sort filters and count beans. You can tell me when I skip numbers." "I never skip numbers," she says, pleased by the assignment. He pulls a small ring of scrap brass from a drawer and sets it on the table. "We should settle something people will ask when they see you together with me. Names on lists. If you want to cover, I can add you to the maintenance roster as temporary assistants. It pays in heat credits. It keeps questions small inside this block. It doesn't travel past Thomas and me. If you prefer quiet, we stay off paper until you say otherwise." Neryl thinks it through. "Quiet for now. If quiet begins to hurt, we go official on your terms, not theirs." "Done." He angles the knife toward her. You ask for a blade that holds an edge. Keep it in your kit. If it goes dull, I sharpen it. She takes the knife, weighs it, and nods once. Thank you. He grabs his jacket. 10 minutes to the shop. We leave in 5. Zai, jacket and the blue scarf. It's clean. Zai pops up, proud to have a scarf in a room where there was none 3 days ago. She loops it twice and looks at the mirror shard near the sink. I look like someone who belongs somewhere, she says, small and honest. You do, Neryl answers. On the landing, Darian checks the chalk mark on the doorframe. His line from yesterday still sits below the circle with 3 slashes. Neryl adds her notch again with the small blade from her kit, crisp and deliberate. It is no longer a test. It is their sign. They take side streets. Darian walks half a step ahead, shoulders set to take any bump. Neryl keeps pace with her chin up. She doesn't scan for escape routes as hard as she did 2 days ago. She still notes them. Zai marches between them, counting doors in a whisper and skipping every third number because she wants to see if Darian catches it. He does. He taps her shoulder on each skip count. She laughs under her breath and corrects herself. The shop sits under a cracked awning. Inside, shelves hold dry goods in careful stacks. The air smells like cumin and old wood. A woman in a gray sweater looks up from a ledger. She is small, trim, and watchful without being hard. Morning, Meyer, she says. You brought weather and company. Morning, Darian says. Backroom work if you have it. Payment and food. No questions past what helps. The woman's gaze flicks to Neryl's hands. Can you mend split handles and reinforce seams? Yes. You fast? Yes. Quiet. When it's required, Neryl says. I can also take clear orders and say when the materials are wrong for the task. The woman nods. Good. I'm Mara. You can call me that or nothing. Come on. Neryl follows her into a narrow room with a table, a stool, a stack of torn sacks, and a crate of thread cones. The space is clean. The corners are swept. The scale is oiled. She relaxes a fraction. Mara points at the pile. I need 8 good sacks by midday. If you finish early, I have bag for the old women's cart. Payment is bread, greens, and oil for your pan. You keep the scraps. I don't pay in stories. Accepted, Neryl says. Mara glances at Darian. She works. You vanish, she says, not unkindly. I don't need a man in the doorway to prove a woman is useful. Agreed. He looks at Neryl. I'll be 2 blocks over with Zai. If you need me, the clerk knows where to send a runner. Neryl hears the line he doesn't say. I will not hover. She gives a short nod and ties her hair back. Darian takes Zai next door to a community table under a patched roof. 2 men sort metal fittings by size. He asks for the dull bin and a spread of washers. Zai sits with bright focus and sorts like it's a game. If I do this right, she says, do I get bean prize? You get 3, he says, and a story about why metal lies about its weight when it's wet. She sorts. He checks his meter and scribbles readings into his pad. He watches the shop door without staring. He feels the urge to stand where he can see Neryl and kills it. He's here if needed. He's not a shadow. She has to walk around. Inside the back room, Neryl works in clean, steady motions. She tests the thread, picks a needle, and stitches with even tension. She reinforces the base corners, backstitches once, knots clean, moves to the next. Mara brings her a mug and stands without asking questions. You know cloth, Mara says. I know how to make fabric hold, Neryl answers. I used to cut dresses for people who forgot fabric is for bodies that move. Bodies move and bags break, Mara says. You'll get steady work if you want it. Backroom only, Neryl says. I don't want a man looking at my hands and pretending he bought them. Mara meets her eye. You keep the backroom as long as you keep the quality. Just after midday, Darian steps to the shop to collect payment, not to inspect. He stands at the counter and pays for 2 extra tea packets with his own credits to make the exchange clean. Mara hands him a sack with fresh bread, greens, and a small bottle of oil, then nods toward the back without commentary. He doesn't go. He thanks her and leaves. Neryl finishes the 8th sack, wipes the needle with a cloth, rolls the thread, and sits for 1 clear minute with her hands in her lap. It is the first minute in months where work ended because a task finished, not because fear stopped it. She breathes once, steady. Mara returns. Tomorrow. 2 mornings a week, Neryl says. I need days to keep my home quiet. Good, Mara says. Bring the child if you want. She can sort hooks for 3 beans an hour. Neryl considers it and nods. Later, they meet at the corner. Darian adjusts his pace to hers without fuss. Zai hops to his other side and tugs the bread sack with both hands. I contributed beans, she announces. You did, Darian says. You sorted the washers so fast one turned shy. It wasn't shy, she says. It was pretending to be big. He accepts her correction as fact. They walk. Back inside the apartment, Neryl sets the oil on the shelf and the bread on the table. She doesn't rush to cook. She stands by the window and looks at the street. No one followed. No curious faces linger. Nothing sharp moves in her chest. Darian wipes the table and lays out a small spread. You kept scraps, he says, nodding at the neat roll of cuttings peeking from her kit. They will become ties and patches, she says. I don't throw away cloth that still wants to work. He hears his own line from the first night echoed back. It lands heavier than he expects. He looks at Zai, who has taken off her scarf and now coils it like a rope for future games. She looks content and also exhausted in the particular way children look after a day where no one yelled. Questions from earlier chapters sit in the room. He addresses them before they fester. Money, he says. I get paid every 10th day for the survey. It covers rent, heat, and what we can't trade for. You don't owe me half the bills. If you want to contribute, you do it in food and repairs until you decide to change that. Neryl nods. Agreed. Documents, he continues. I wrote 2 tags but didn't file them. They're in the drawer if you change your mind. One says you're my fabric technician for filter bags. The other says Zai is a runner. The tags never leave this block. Neryl opens the drawer, reads the tags, and closes it. Leave them for now. Education, he adds, nodding to Zai. I have a set of primer sheets. She can start letters next to beans. 10 minutes a day. No tests. Zai frowns. Letters bite. Only if you feed them fear, Darian says. We'll feed them time. She nods like he set a sensible diet and climbs onto the chair to see the primer sheets he pulls from his sleeve. She traces a curve with her finger. This one looks like a hook. It is, he says. It catches words before they run. Neryl watches the exchange and files it under reasons the door feels safe. She turns to the stove and cooks. Oil in the pan. Greens down. Salt. Bread warmed on the side. Her motions are quick and economical. Darian sets bowls and steps back. Zai reaches for the largest piece of bread and then stops herself, checks her mother's hand, and divides it evenly without prompting. Neryl notices and doesn't praise it out loud. She just lets the small act stand. They eat. The room feels like it was designed for this, not like they forced it to contain their lives. After, Darian rinses the bowls while Neryl clears the crumbs with the side of her hand. Their movements begin to read as practiced, though they have never done this exact dance before. Darian pulls out the brass ring he left on the table yesterday. He doesn't push it forward. He sets it where it can be seen and says only what belongs to today. I meant what I said last night. I want you. I will keep my hands to myself unless you decide otherwise. Neryl stands. She takes the repair dress from the chair and steps toward the washroom, then stops and turns back. Help me with the tie, she says, voice even. He comes close and lifts his hands to her shoulder. He threads the silk through the loop she added and ties a flat knot. The move is simple. His fingers stay sure and gentle. He can feel her breath on his wrist. He steps back half a pace when the knot holds. He does not adjust fabric that doesn't need adjusting. Her eyes take a second to catch up with the fact that nothing extra happened. Thank you, she says. You're welcome. She faces the mirror shard and checks the line. The dress now sits as a choice. She looks like herself, not like a problem someone else needs to solve. She turns, takes his hand, and places it on her waist for a short, exact count of time. The contact is warm and deliberate. She removes his hand and sets it at his side. I will say yes or no on the day I choose, she says. Today I say this is allowed. I hear you. Zai watches, curious and unbothered. If you kiss, do I close my eyes, she asks, not teasing, just verifying rules. You close your book, Neryl says. Finish your letter hooks. Okay. Zai bends over the primer sheet and draws a clean curve. They settle for the evening. Darian checks the heater filter again and resets the breaker cover with 2 tight screws. Neryl cleans the blade and slides it into her kit. Zai finishes the first row of letters and shows it like a trophy. I didn't skip any. You didn't, Darian says. You held the line. Close to lights out, Thomas knocks once and calls low through the door. Meter stable. Roof holds. I left a wedge on the landing in case the bar sticks. Darian answers with thanks. The exchange is short and practical. Thomas shuffles away. Darian drops the bar. The click lands clear. Neryl stands by the window and looks down at the street. A couple hurries past under a shared coat. A boy pushes a cart with one wheel that locks every second turn. No one looks up. She rests her palm on the patched seam. The resin held in last night's wind. The glass sits flush. She nods to herself, then returns to the table. I will work again in 2 days, she says. Back room. Same terms. Zai can come to sort hooks if you're gone. I'll arrange my loop, so I'm back by midday, Darian says. No one else needs to walk you. She moves closer, stopping at a distance that can shift either way without confusion. You took the door at night. You told the truth, you didn't hover at the shop, and you didn't turn restraint into a sermon, she says. I'm not ready to wear a ring tonight. I am ready to mark the door again in the morning and call this home. That's enough, he says. She steps in once more, close enough to kiss if she wanted to. She doesn't. She tilts her head and sets her forehead against his for the length of 2 breaths. His hands stay at his sides because he said they would until she asked. She draws back first, eyes clear. Good night, Darian. Good night, Neryl. Zai slides under the blanket with her scarf coiled like a pet at the foot of the bed. If you go out while I sleep, leave a note, she says again, half asleep, clinging to the one rule that shut down a long habit of fear. I won't go out, Darian says. If I do, there will be a note. Okay. Her voice thins as sleep takes it. Then I won't count the heater hums. He lies on the cot with one hand under the pillow and the other on the floorboards. He reviews the day the way he reviews a map. Work done. No missed lines, no corners cut. He lets himself replay the moment her hand set his at her waist and treats it like a clear instruction, not a tease. He files it under trust earned, not owed. The building settles. The rain shifts to a faint tap. The 3 of them sleep in a room that has stopped feeling borrowed and started feeling made. Tomorrow they will decide again, with clear heads and full bellies. And the decision will not be about escape, but about staying and about what to call it when a man keeps a roof sound. A woman chooses the terms of her own safety, and a child decides her shoes can finally come off at night. Heat rises in her face and throat. She lets it. Her chin lifts a fraction. Thank you, she says. I want to be wanted and not used. I want to be looked at and not owned. She glances at Zai and sets the last part of the path. I choose you as my man and my partner. I choose your roof as our home. I'm not ready for a crowd or a paper office. I am ready for a ring and a door that says family. Zai exhales like she has been holding breath she didn't admit to. She slides off the bunk and climbs into the chair, suddenly shy and proud. I made a paper, she says, and pulls a folded sheet from under the primer. The letters are slow and careful. Family rules. 3 lines follow in a child's upright hand. We eat. We tell the truth. We wait for each other. At the bottom, a blank space waits for marks. Neryl reads it once, then again, and puts her finger on the last line. We sign, she says, voice tight for a moment, then steady. All of us. Darian takes the brass ring from the shelf and holds it in his palm. The metal is warm from the room. He does not kneel. He stands at the table like a man, signing a work order he intends to complete. Neryl, he says, stay and be my wife in our way. No priests. No speeches. Witnesses when you want them. The work starts now. She extends her left hand. He slides the ring onto her finger. It fits, not perfect, but right. She thread tests the moment with a quiet instruction. Kiss me, she says, the way you will when the day is busy and you still want me. He steps in and kisses her once, firm and focused, not soft, not showy. His hands stay on her waist with strength and restraint. She answers with equal pressure and breaks it first, eyes bright and clear. Good, she says, breath steady. We can work with that. Zai claps once, serious and satisfied. Sign, she says, and places the paper flat. Darian signs first, block letters, date. Neryl signs next with a hand that doesn't shake. Zai prints her name and draws a small hook in the corner because she likes how it looks and because it catches words before they run. They fold the paper and slide it into the drawer with the tags. Is not the city's ledger. Is theirs. Thomas knocks light and calls low through the door. Meter holds. Roof is good. I have a spare hinge if you still hear a squeak. Darian opens to a thumb's width. Come witness one thing, he says. The old man peers in, takes in the ring, the folded paper, the set of their faces, and nods once with real understanding. I saw nothing, he says, which on this floor means he saw what mattered. He slides a new hinge through the gap and shuffles off. No speech. Enough. They spend the late morning turning one man's room into a home for three. Darian lifts the bunk and mounts a second bracket so it doesn't creak when Zai turns. He moves the cot to the wall and sets a plywood board into the bed frame so the mattress won't sag. He anchors the line above the heater so it can hold two loads at once. He drills a second latch inside the washroom because Neryl asked for it. He gives her the only key to the cabinet by the window. He does the work with his head down and his hands fast. Not because he wants to show off, but because he is happiest when things sit tight and true. Neryl lays out the scraps and stitches a narrow curtain to divide the room into two zones without hiding anyone. She reinforces Zai's scarf where the weave thinned. She rewinds thread cones and marks them by color on a scrap of paper so they stop tangling. She sets her kit on the shelf like a small altar to the part of her that never stopped earning her life. She looks at the space and makes one change she didn't warn him about. She moves the table half a meter to the window. Light belongs on work, and work is what they do. Zai sorts washers, then letters, then beans. She counts cleanly. She does not skip numbers. She asks 3 questions while she works, the ones that kept her up before. If someone from the city knocks, what do I call you? Darian, he says. And if you want to say more, say my mother's husband. She nods and returns to her letters. If you leave and forget the note, what happens? I come back, write the note, tell you why I forgot, and accept any bean penalties you set. She grins and says 5 beans. If Mama gets scared again for no reason, do you get tired? He looks at Neryl, then at Zai. I get patient faster now, he says. Fear is part of her. It will not be the boss of this room. Afternoon brings work and small firsts. Neryl puts on the repair dress because she wants to feel the weight of her own choice while doing ordinary tasks. She ties her hair tight and asks Darian to check the knot at her shoulder with a firm pull. He does. He looks at her like a man who has the right to look because she said so, and like a man who can wait for more because she asked him to. He admits one truth that fits the slightly perverted line she accused him of the first night and keeps it simple. I like that dress in my kitchen, he says. I like your thigh bare while you cook. I will not touch you there until you say. She answers with a look that lands like permission for later. Tonight, she says without drama. After lights out, curtain closed. My lead, your strength. Understood, he says. He steps out to clear a drain with Zai, while Neryl takes a short shift at Mara's back room to deliver the finished sacks and collect thread. He leaves a note anyway, because he said he would. Back soon. East Drain. With Z. The line sits in the center of the table like a small, hard promise. They return before dark with dry boots and a new bar of soap traded for a filter gasket. Neryl returns with thread, a coil of binding tape, and bread. Mara sent an extra roll and a quiet smile that did not ask questions. They cook a simple meal and eat at the table by the window. Zai reads the first row of letterhooks out loud and gets them right. She glows in that small, steady way children glow when an adult keeps every rule they set. Evening folds in. Thomas calls the roof stable and wishes them heat. Darian bolts the bar. The click lands clear. He lowers the lamp to a safe height. He sets a shallow basin on the table and cleans Neryl's forearm where the concrete scraped it yesterday, slow and firm. She watches his face for any shift into impatience and finds none. She dries her hands and lifts her eyes to his. "I'm ready," she says. Zai crawls under the blanket with the scarf at her feet. "I will not count the heater hums tonight," she says. "If I wake, I will read the note and go back to sleep." "You're safe," Neryl says. "I am here." He is here. The door holds. Darian pulls the curtain across the room. It is thin, but it gives privacy without pretending they live in different worlds. Neryl steps into the space with him, guides his hands to her waist, and tells him what she wants in clean, adult language that belongs to her. He listens and does exactly that. What follows is theirs, and it is not for an audience. There is strength and restraint. There is real heat, and there is no fear. When she shakes, it is not from cold. When he holds her, he uses the full, controlled power she asked him for. When they lie still, her breath lengthens and stays even. Later, they rejoin the room as it was. She rests her forehead to his for a long moment at the table while the lamp burns low. She does not hide her face. He does not turn away. No one becomes smaller to make this work. They sleep. Morning arrives with normal rain and a building that sounds like it will last a season. Zai wakes first and reads the note even though it wasn't needed, then laughs at herself and tucks it under the primer. She looks at them and grins with relief that looks new on her. "We both look like people who stayed," she says. They mark the doorframe together before breakfast. Darian adds a second line under the circle. Neryl cuts her notch clean and deep. Zai draws her small hook beside it and steps back to admire the set. 3 signs, 1 frame. They eat and plan the week like a unit. Neryl's 2 mornings at Mara's. Darian's roof loop and east drain audit. Zai's letters, numbers, and hook sorting. They agree on quiet for now and a small witness circle later when they choose a date for paper. They decide how to handle knocks, notes, and nights. They do not ask permission from anyone outside the blue door. The rain falls and the roof holds. The heater hums. The city breathes. Inside, 3 people live where 1 did, and the room does not fight them for it. The story ends here because nothing important is in doubt. They chose one another, and they made that choice real with food, work, rules, a ring, and a door that now reads like a promise.